Pat Concessi has tried to make her Toronto garden as butterfly-friendly as possible. There are purple pollinators and flowers that bloom late into fall.
Monarchs need to collect enough nectar to get the energy to make their migration back to Mexico.
Despite her best efforts, today, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature added the monarch butterfly to its red list and categorized it as endangered, nearing extinction, because its population has shrunk between 22 and 72% over the last decade, threatened by habitat destruction and climate change. Canada hasn't yet listed the monarch as endangered, but conservation groups have been keeping a close eye on it. Changes in crops and pesticides have eliminated large amounts of milkweed, a vital source for the monarchs.
One of the most important things that has contributed to their decline is the loss of milkweed. And here in Canada, we can help support the monarch butterfly by planting more milkweed and by planting more native species that they depend on.
That helps, but part of the reason the population is in peril is climate change.
Monarch numbers are really tied to variation in year-to-year weather, and that the conditions that are best for monarchs are becoming more rare. So the hot and dry conditions are not good for them.
Butterflies need a source of water, as do many of the flying insects, so I just keep a pan of water there.
Still, Concessi believes every little bit helps, even in a small patch of urban greenery.
Like many people my age, I think about the world that I grew up in and how different the world my grandchildren are growing up in. And if there's something I can do to slow the pace of species extinction, that's something I want to do.
Small changes not just for the butterflies, but her grandchildren too.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hunting, environmental health scientist and UC Marin Master Gardener. In this video, we ask, why are the monarchs disappearing? And what can home gardeners do to help? But first, let's take a look at their habitat and life cycle. Divided by the Rockies, western monarchs overwinter along the California coast, while eastern monarchs migrate to Mexico. Overwintering sites in Marin include Bolinas, Stinson Beach, and Point Reyes Seashore. Monarch butterflies cluster in treetops to keep warm. They roost on eucalyptus and conifers in a state of partial hibernation. In early spring, they wake out of a 4-month diapause or rest. They fly inland to mate. Females lay eggs only on their host milkweeds. A tiny egg on the back of a milkweed leaf hatches into a baby larva or caterpillar. A monarch caterpillar eats only milkweed, lots of it. It molts 5 times, growing over 1,000-fold. Then it hangs upside down and forms a chrysalis. When metamorphosis is complete, the adult butterfly emerges. Butterflies have been around for 175 million years. Why are the monarchs disappearing now? Loss of habitat, pesticide, and climate change are a few of the problems. Climate change brings drought and extreme storms, meaning that flowers may not provide nectar at critical times in the insect's life cycle. What can we do to help this amazing insect?
Hi, I'm Alice Kaysen. I'm a UC Marin Master Gardener, and I've been studying the monarch butterfly for many years in school gardens, community gardens, and here in my home garden. Choose nectar plants for the mature butterfly that bloom spring, summer, and fall. This is a good choice. It's Verbena elacia de la Mina, and it's a California native, drought tolerant, and has a very long bloom period. The most important plant to encourage monarchs to come and visit your garden is the milkweed plant. It's the host plant for the monarch caterpillar. In Marin County, we have the Asclepias fascicularis, or narrowleaf milkweed. It's the place where the monarchs will lay their egg and the caterpillars will find something to eat. Look for monarch eggs on the underside of the leaf. The monarch caterpillar hatches from an egg in about 4 days and becomes a tiny caterpillar.
Hi, I'm Morgan Patton, the Executive Director of the Environmental Action Committee of West Marin, or EAC. We were formed in 1971 and we're a grassroots environmental organization based in Point Reyes Station. We published the Marin Monarch Movement Report, which was an analysis of how individuals and organizations throughout Marin County are helping to support the monarch population. And together we're working to figure out how we can best support and enhance monarch habitat here in Marin County and beyond. We stress the right action in the right place right now. Right action means planting the right plants, like native milkweeds for your area, and not planting harmful non-natives, like tropical milkweed. In the right place, we're encouraging folks to not plant milkweed if you live within 5 miles of the coast. And right now, we need to make a call for everyone to talk to their local nurseries to make sure that they remove non-native tropical milkweed and stop treating their plants with insecticides. Other opportunities to help monarchs are installing nectar gardens at schools, helping steward overwintering sites, there are many in the Bay Area, joining a citizen or community science group such as iNaturalist or Monarch Watch. We can all do something to help this iconic butterfly, whether it's individual actions in your own garden or working within your community or with other partners and your friends. We all want to see a future with this iconic Western monarch butterfly.
We have hundreds of native bees in Minnesota, as well as our European honeybee. So it's important to have a lot of different diverse plants in your garden to feed lots of different kinds of bees. This bottle gentian, Gentiana andrewsii, is one of my favorite late season flowers. And here during the month of October, it's blooming, as you can see, bright blue in my garden. This particular flower requires the bumblebee, a big, strong bee, to be able to pry apart these petals and access the pollen and nectar in this plant. So looking around this landscape, you can see a lot of spent flowers. We have a few that are still blooming in October. But these flowers bloomed all throughout the summer and were provided nectar and pollen for different kinds of bees. The anise hyssop, Joe pieweed, ironweed, western sunflower. All of these were important food resources for our bees. In addition to a diversity of plants that serve as food for pollinators, we also want to create a really good habitat. And during the fall, it's important to think about that as you're cleaning up your yard. One of the ways is not to mulch everything in your yard. For example, underneath this area, this is a sandy, warm soil. It's got eastern sunlight in the morning, and ground nesting bees, solitary ground nesting bees, really like to build their nests in this part of my wall. Mulch can sometimes be very difficult for bees to get through to their ground nests. So in this area, the hostas cover up the soil, so I don't need to apply any mulch. One of the things that we do in our gardens in Minnesota is that we cut our plants back in the fall. And when you're thinking about pollinators, and particularly with stem nesting bees, it's a great idea to not cut your flowers back or your stems back as far as we normally would. Don't cut them to the ground. Cut them at about 18 to 20 inches. This happens to be swamp milkweed. This is a great pollinator plant. It's also a food source for monarchs. So I'm going to take this year's stems and cut them at about 18 to 20 inches high and just leave them like that. And you can see that the stems are hollow, and bees will come down these stems and they'll lay their eggs in there. These are stems from last year that remained in place all year, and you can see how hollow they are. Those might very well make a good nesting space for some of our stem nesting bees. So what do you do with the stems that actually do fall down and are lying in your garden? Some people like to tidy that up a little bit more. What I do is I'll pick them up and I'll put them into a bundle like this, and I'll just tuck this kind of in an out-of-the-way place in my garden where you can't really see it. But it still leaves them available for any stem nesting bees. Some of these might already have eggs laid in them anyway, so I don't want to destroy them by composting or burning them. So I'm going to just tuck them under my spruce tree here. So in addition to bundling up the sticks in your yard, you can also make a bee house. And you want to do that by cutting hollow tubes, hollow sticks like this, and cut them into between 5 or 8 inches long. And then you're going to insert them into some kind of a holder. It could be a piece of PVC. I'm using an old flower pot here. And I'm going to put a piece of plastic in the bottom because there's still holes in the back, and we want to prevent any kind of parasites or pathogens from sneaking in here and using these tubes for their own nests. Then I'm just going to put in my sticks. These are stems from hosta, Joe Pyeweed, echinacea, monarda, all different kinds. And you can see that they're all different sizes. Those are for different sizes of bees. So another important part of habitat for pollinators, and when we're cleaning up our yards in the fall, is you don't have to be quite as tidy as we've been in the past. In fact, we found that leaf litter left on soil is really a great place for our beneficial insects to spend the winters. So in the case of this big root geranium and catmint and hostas and all these plants that are ornamental, I'm not going to clean up all these leaves in here. I'm going to leave them down here and let them act as a natural mulch. They'll break down on my soil in the spring, and they'll also provide that habitat for our important pollinators. So as you're cleaning up your fall landscapes this year, think about our pollinators and what you can do now to help them through the winter and in the spring. Leaving stems standing, cut them at 18 inches. Collect dead stems that have fallen and put them in a location where they can be found by the bees. Create bee houses and leave that all-important leaf litter on your soil. I'm Julie Weisenhorn from University of Minnesota Extension, and this is my pollinator-friendly landscape.